The thing that finally broke you wasn't the big thing. It was the small one that came after. The tone, the look, the silence that lasted one beat too long. And suddenly everything you'd been carrying poured out, not because this was the worst moment, but because it was the last one you could hold. You've been here before, maybe more times than you'd like to admit. Someone leaves a cup on the counter. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence. Someone doesn't text back for a few hours. And something in you snaps. Not a little, a lot. More than makes sense. More than feels like you. And afterward, you're standing in the wreckage wondering what just happened. Why that? Why now? Why so much? You tell yourself you overreacted. You apologize. You feel ashamed. You promise yourself you'll do better next time. But next time comes, and it happens again. Different trigger, same explosion. This isn't about anger management. This isn't about learning to stay calm. This is about understanding why your body stores what your mind won't feel, and why eventually it all comes out, sideways, sudden, and aimed at the wrong thing. Here's something most people don't realize. Emotions don't disappear when you ignore them. They don't dissolve when you push through. They don't evaporate because you decided you don't have time to feel them. They wait. Every disappointment you swallowed, every frustration you brushed off, every moment you felt unseen and told yourself it didn't matter, every time you needed something and talked yourself out of needing it, it's all still in there. Your body keeps a record of everything your mind refuses to process, not as memory, as pressure. Think of it like this. You have a container inside you, and every unfelt emotion, every hurt you skipped, every sadness you stuffed down, every anger you didn't let yourself express, goes into that container. At first, there's room. You can keep adding, keep ignoring, keep functioning. But the container doesn't expand. It just fills and fills and fills until one day someone sighs at you wrong, someone leaves the kitchen messy, someone forgets to say thank you, and the whole thing overflows. Not because that moment was big, but because there was no room left. This is the part that confuses people. If you're carrying so much, why does it come out over dishes, over traffic, over someone chewing too loud? Because small things are safe. Think about it. The real stuff, the stuff you're actually hurt about, is heavy. It's complicated. It involves people you love, situations you can't fix, wounds that go back years. You can't explode at your childhood. You can't scream at the parent who didn't show up. You can't rage at the version of yourself that kept quiet for too long. But you can snap at your partner for not taking out the trash. You can lose it at the driver who cut you off. You can slam a door because someone interrupted you. The small thing becomes the exit, the release valve, the one place all that pressure can finally go. It's not rational, it's not fair, but it's how the body survives when the real feelings have nowhere else to go. The tricky part is that you don't feel the buildup while it's happening. You think you're fine, handling it, managing. You go to work, you take care of things, you keep showing up. But underneath, the pressure is rising. You feel it as tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, as irritability that doesn't have a clear cause, as a shorter fuse than you used to have. You feel it in your body, your shoulders tight for no reason, your jaw clenched while you're just sitting there, a heaviness in your chest that comes and goes. You might not call it emotion, you might call it stress or exhaustion or just how life feels right now. But it's not life, it's you, carrying things you never put down. And because you've gotten so good at carrying, you don't realize how much you're holding until something small comes along and your arms give out.
Let me show you how this actually plays out. It's a Tuesday. Nothing special. You've had a full week already and it's only halfway through. Work has been demanding, not dramatic, just relentless. The kind of pressure that doesn't announce itself but wears you down anyway. You haven't really stopped in days. Haven't had a conversation that wasn't about logistics. Haven't been asked how you're doing by anyone who actually wanted to know. You're tired. But it's the kind of tired you've learned to ignore. You come home, your partner's there. They're fine, nothing's wrong, but they're on their phone, distracted. They say hi without looking up, and something in you tightens. You don't say anything. You start making dinner. They wander in and mention that you forgot to pick up something from the store. It's a small thing. They're not even annoyed, just mentioning it. But something cracks. You snap. Not a little, really snap. Your voice is sharp, your words are clipped. You're suddenly listing everything you've done this week, everything you've handled, everything they haven't noticed. They're confused, defensive. Now you're both upset, and neither of you understands what just happened. Later, when it's quiet, you realize it wasn't about the store. It wasn't even about them. It was about the fact that you've been running on empty for weeks, that no one's noticed, that you didn't even notice yourself. And that one small moment of not being seen was the final drop in a container that was already overflowing. That's how it happens. Not with a big event, with a small one that happens to come last. Here's the painful part. The people who receive your explosion are almost never the people who cause the pressure. It's your partner who gets the rage that belongs to your boss. It's your kid who gets the frustration that's really about your own childhood. It's the stranger in traffic who gets the grief you've been carrying for months. And you know it's not fair. Even in the moment, some part of you knows this reaction doesn't match this situation, but you can't stop it. The release is already started. This is what displacement looks like. The emotion is real, the target is wrong. And afterward, you're left with two things: the original pain you still haven't processed, and the guilt of having hurt someone who didn't deserve it. It's exhausting. Not just the explosion, but the cycle. Stuff it down, hold it together, explode, feel ashamed, promise to do better, stuff it down again. Nothing actually gets felt. Nothing actually gets released. You just keep moving the pressure around. So why don't you just feel things as they come? Because somewhere along the way, you learned that wasn't an option. Maybe your emotions were too much for the people around you. Maybe you were told to calm down before anyone asked what was wrong. Maybe showing how you felt made things worse instead of better. So you adapted. You compressed, to delay, to store now and deal later. Except later never comes, because there's always something else, always another reason to hold it together, always another situation that requires you to be functional, composed, fine. And the container just keeps filling. This connects to something deeper. We talked about it before, how anger becomes armor, how sadness gets converted into something harder because soft feelings weren't safe. The explosion is what happens when even the armor can't hold anymore, when the converted emotions pile up so high that something has to give. You're not exploding because you're broken. You're exploding because you're human, and humans aren't designed to carry unfelt feelings forever. Your body isn't stupid. It's not malfunctioning when it explodes over small things. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. The nervous system has one job: keep you alive. And part of keeping you alive is regulating the internal pressure. When emotions build up without release, the body starts looking for exits. Sometimes the exit is tears. Sometimes it's a shaking. Sometimes it's a deep breath that finally lets something go. But if those exits are blocked, if crying isn't safe, if vulnerability isn't allowed, if stillness feels like danger, then the body finds another way. It finds anger. Because anger is active. Anger moves outward. Anger doesn't require you to be soft or open or still. It lets you discharge the pressure without having to feel what's underneath it. The explosion isn't a malfunction, it's a pressure release, a last resort exit for emotions that were never given a proper door. Your body is trying to save you. It's just using the only tool it has left. But let's not pretend this comes without a price. Every time you explode at the wrong person, something breaks. Trust, safety, intimacy. The other person pulls back a little. They start walking on eggshells. They stop bringing things up because they don't know what will set you off. And you feel that. Even if they don't say it,
You feel them keeping distance, being careful, protecting themselves from you. That's a specific kind of loneliness, being surrounded by people who love you but are afraid of your reactions. And then there's what it costs you internally. Every explosion is followed by shame, that sinking feeling of, I did it again. The replaying of what you said, how you said it, the look on their face, the apologies that start to feel hollow because you've made them so many times before. You start to distrust yourself. You don't know when you'll snap next. You're always slightly on guard against your own reactions. That's exhausting, being afraid of yourself. And underneath all of it, the original feelings still haven't been touched. The sadness, the grief, the hurt that started this whole thing. It's still there, pressurizing. The explosion didn't release it. It just bought you a little more time before the next one. Here's something worth sitting with. The explosion isn't just a release of pressure. It's a communication, a desperate one. Underneath the sharp words and the raised voice, there's usually something simpler trying to get out. See me. I'm overwhelmed. I need help. I can't keep carrying this alone. But those words feel too vulnerable, too exposing, so they come out disguised as criticism, frustration, blame. You're not really angry that they forgot to text back. You're hurt that you don't feel prioritized. You're not really furious about the mess. You're exhausted and unsupported, and no one seems to notice. The explosion is the message in the only language your nervous system knows how to speak when the softer words won't come. It's not the healthiest communication, but it's not meaningless either. There's always something real underneath, something that needed to be said long before the breaking point. So what do you do with all this? I'm not going to tell you to breathe through it, or count to 10, or journal your feelings before they build up. That's not what this is about. This is about seeing clearly, understanding the mechanism, recognizing that the explosion wasn't a personal failing. It was a predictable outcome of carrying too much for too long without anywhere for it to go. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're just full. And full people overflow. That's not a character defect. That's physics. The question isn't, how do I stop exploding? That's the wrong question. It keeps you focused on the symptom. The real question is, what have I been carrying that I haven't let myself feel? That's harder. That takes longer. That requires you to go back and open doors you closed for good reason. But it's the only thing that actually changes the pattern, not managing the explosions, but emptying the container. For now, I want you to notice something. Not before the explosion, after it. What happens inside you when the dust settles, when the adrenaline fades, and you're left standing in the aftermath? There's usually a collapse, a hollowing out. Shame, yes, but something else too. A kind of emptiness, like something that was holding you together just let go. That feeling, that post-explosion quiet, isn't nothing. It's information. It's showing you what was actually happening underneath, the exhaustion you weren't admitting, the grief you weren't touching, the softness you couldn't access until the armor finally cracked. That's where the real feeling lives, not in the explosion itself, but in what comes after, when the pressure is finally released and you're left alone with what was underneath all along. We're going to look at that next, not the buildup, not the snap, but the silence after, the shame, the emptiness, what it feels like to sit in the wreckage of your own reaction and wonder who that was. Because that moment, right after, is where something can finally shift. If this helped you understand something you've been confused about, consider staying. There's more to look at here. Stop fixing, start understanding.